Welcome back, everyone. This is episode 138 of the Jiu-Jitsu Dummies podcast. We're brought to you by Black Belt Digital Marketing. Anything you need to build your business on or offline, website design, Google Ads, graphic design, printing, we can absolutely help. Check us out at Black Belt Digital Marketing on Instagram or our website, bbdigitalmarketing.com. You can request a free review of your entire online presence today. My name is Milton Campus. I'm a black belt training out of South Florida. We got Christian behind the camera. Bo is not with us today. His car broke down, so we gave him the day off. Don't forget to like, comment, download, share, and click that subscribe button. We'd really appreciate all the support. Joining us today is Blue Belt Josh Beam. He's got a very interesting story, and we'll jump into that in just a few minutes. A few quick shout-outs. So thank you to our friends over at Flow and Roll. We're going on 5 years of this podcast in May. They've been with us since the very beginning. Very much appreciate all of Sean's support. We just did an embroidered belt giveaway. So let's remind everybody that you can buy embroidered belts from them on their website, and you can use code JJD to get 20% off of any of your orders. Also, check them out on Instagram at Flow. It's flow_n_roll, or visit their website, flowandroll.com. And we've got some really interesting things that we're partnering with them on, including our new rash guard that's going to come out, that the hobbyist rash guard that we've been posting about on both of our IGs. So check that out, everybody. So Leo Optics is a sunglass and apparel company. Here are my shades. I actually do wear these, right? I wore these in the car on the way here. Here we go. They are a sunglass and apparel company specializing in these signature bamboo sunglasses. The thing that I love about it, I had these before I got my black belt, but you got the red stripe. If you're a blue belt, the brown belt, the purple belt, you can request your stripe there on the inside of the sunglasses. So really cool. Their passion is rooted in the jiu-jitsu lifestyle, founded in Southern California with obviously products reflecting the BJJ lifestyle. So use code JJD to get 10% off any of your orders at leooptics.com. All right. Now the big one, right? So we've got bioprotein tech. So we shout them out every week, right? This is a bioidentical alternative to human growth hormone. I did just get blood work done, and my HGH, I don't know the exact numbers, but my HGH is up over my previous blood tests with the place that I went to, which was about a year ago. So I was just like, oh, great. He's like, keep on taking it. It's working. So this is going to help you with anti-aging, metabolism, libido, immune system, skin, cognition. And then, right, you've got the plus, the Quarter Sleep Plus. This is going to help you with sleep. I take this one at night. You take them on an empty stomach in the morning, and then again, the Quarter Sleep at night. All this is done with no needles. They're these small vials. You pop it back, keep it under your tongue for 90 seconds. No side effects. You can check them out at bioproteintech.com, and you get 30% off with code JJD on any of their regularly priced kits. You're going to pay for these two kits. You're going to pay about $300 a month, and honestly, I believe it's truly worth it. All right, that's it. Let's do this. Let's get Josh in here. Hey, brother, how you doing? Thank you for being patient, man. How's everything, man?
Good. Yeah, thanks for having me. I was excited and looking forward to this all week. So
very cool, man. I like that. There aren't too many people that are excited to talk to me. So, well, they're like, it's Milton calling.
Oh God.
So, well, I'm glad to have you. I've been following you for a little while now. Let's not talk about how you found jiu-jitsu just yet, but let's jump into, why you've become so popular, right? Just tell people what you've done over the last year specifically, I guess, right? Is it 1 year that you've been on this journey of traveling and doing these competitions, right?
Yeah, close to that. So what had happened was back in 2022. So I got my blue belt like the end of 2021, I think, okay. And then I told my coach, I was like, I want to try Worlds, and I had never competed before, and he was like, maybe you should do some other local competitions, or you just go do Worlds. I was like, okay. So then my first ever competition was the Jiu-Jitsu World League in Stockton, where I did really bad. And then just kept doing bad for all of 2022. And I was sort of traveling around, but I still had my apartment back here in San Jose where I live. And then I realized I was basically traveling for a competition every week because I just kind of got addicted to it at that point. And and I was essentially paying double rent. So I was like, you have to live out of hotels basically if you're traveling all over the place, right? So last year in February, I got rid of my lease and then went full jiu-jitsu nomad.
Yeah.
And this is kind of the year that you were alluding to.
Yeah.
So I went full nomad in 2023, just living in a new place every week, competing. And then I got back pretty recently in November, and then the competition season was kind of winding down. So then I just started making videos. And basically the videos are like on my Instagram, and they're just talking about all my weird competition adventures and traveling and, you know, sort of lessons I've learned from competing. Just kind of giving my experience. And, you know, I get messages from, you know, people who are newer to competing a lot of the time. And it kind of makes my heart swell because they're like, dude, like, thank you for, you know, those, whatever the, you know, the tips you gave from competing so much. And so that kind of motivates me to keep making more videos. So
you're inspiring people, which is always nice, right?
I never thought that would be the case, but it's amazing that turned out to be the case. Cause you know, I just started competing, you know, cause I love it so much, got addicted to it. And it's like, oh, cool, that can also, you know, help other people. So
now
cool.
A couple of questions that leads me to, is jiu-jitsu the career now? Or I think in one of the questions that we have, and that we'll probably ask later, are you a computer program? Are you like a programmer?
I am.
What do you do? So you're able to like do that while you're on the road? So you still have a career outside of jiu-jitsu?
Exactly. And people were asking me, you know, how you afford it, because competing is sort of prohibitively expensive, which is unfortunate. So, but that's also one reason why I'm really grateful that, you know, I've been able to do this. But that's the answer. People are like, bro, how can I replicate like that lifestyle? How can I just travel full time and compete? And like the thing is, for jiu-jitsu, I don't know how much other sports cost and everything, but like travel expenses and, you know, tournament registrations, the reality of it is that you just have to, you have to pay for that, right?
Yeah.
The software engineer, as a software engineer, you can work remotely. I've been doing software engineering since like 2015 or something. So it kind of took a while. I sort of built a career on that, and then got to a point where I, you know, was working a remote job, and, you know, that gives the ability to travel and do.
So do you work for one company, or do you do you like work? You like doing outsourced work for different companies? So like,
I work for one company right now. A lot of remote software engineers and web designers and, you know, computer programmers. All the terms are the same nowadays.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, they used to mean something different, but they all kind of we're calling like web designers software engineers now and stuff.
Really? Okay.
Historically isn't the case, or not web designers, but like web developers.
Okay.
We all get grouped under this umbrella of one term now. But yeah, a lot of people sort of do that consultant type of situation.
Sure.
That's like the classic digital nomad. Doing projects for multiple companies and stuff. But like, yeah, whenever people ask me that question of what they can do to enable that sort of lifestyle, I'm like, just look into finding some kind of remote job, right? Like that's the answer, I think, unless you're sponsored. You know, we're not all here. We're not Gordon Ryan's like
yet.
Yet
for you, right, I'm talking about you, not me.
Thanks. But right, like there's the pros, and then that's sort of how it seems, right? There's the pros who sort of are enabled to do that through sponsors and that kind of thing. I don't even know if that's the case. I'm assuming that's the case. And then there's sort of everybody else who, you know, we're all amateur athletes unless we're right. Like
I know from the so I own Black Belt Digital Marketing. That's my company. That's the day job. I was doing this before I opened up my company. I've been in marketing for almost 2 decades. After post-COVID, I reopened, opened up another company under my own umbrella. So like we're pretty much 100% remote. Pretty much. That doesn't make any sense. We're 100% remote. I have an office that I can go to, but I don't go to it. My daughter works for the company from Virginia. Her sister works with her half sister, so not my daughter, works for us from New York. We have somebody in PA. another graphic designer in VA. My future son-in-law is going to be working for us. He just went to his first meeting for like a referral group that we use. So I'm all about that remote lifestyle. Like if I have my phone in my hand, I'm in the office. I can do anything that I need to do from my phone. So I love that, but I'm not traveling and competing. I'm just starting to travel now because I'm really comfortable now that I can go. So I went to UFC 299 and I stayed down at the Hard Rock. Going up to New York to the second game of the Yankee season, going to see. So like now I'm getting that, but I'm not doing it for jiu-jitsu.
Right,
I still don't take my gi with me when I travel yet, but I need to. I should. But
you got to take the gi. You got to take the gi because no matter where you go, you can drop in. Like any gym in any major metropolitan area.
So
right?
My ex-wife wasn't like super cool. Like she didn't love jiu-jitsu. Like it was a sore spot, I guess. And I just really didn't bring my gi when we traveled. We didn't travel a ton, but I just didn't bring my gi with me. It was just kind of like, really? More jiu-jitsu? So I just didn't travel. And I'm just starting to travel. I mean, I live in Florida, so I was just traveling locally to stay here. So it wasn't like I was going too far. New York, I'm only going to be there for like 3 days. So it's like, I'm not going to really have time to really go train. And the person I'm with doesn't do jiu-jitsu at all. So we're just going to spend some time in New York and do some fun stuff. But yeah, I haven't done, I don't think I've ever traveled outside of Florida to do jiu-jitsu, which is sad. And I've been doing this, I'm going on June is 10 years. So I just haven't because I wasn't in a situation where it was kind of okay in the relationship. So anyway, but I think that's why like what you do appeals to me so much. It's like, man, I mean, don't we all want to do that, right? I think if you talk to any jiu-jitsu guy, it's just like, if I could just grab my gi, pack up the car and travel all over the place and do jiu-jitsu and roll with different people and meet different people, I think that's like a dream for all of us, right? I mean, you've got to encounter it even more than I do.
Yeah, it's weird because when also I wanted to say that's awesome that you're starting to travel more and everything. You're probably getting a taste now of
well, again, that with the job, like the freedom of the job, the business is in a good place where, again, like I travel, I'm still working. If I have my phone, I'm answering every call, but it's good feeling to know that I could do that and the business doesn't suffer, clients don't suffer,
Exactly. That's the freedom, right?
Yeah.
You realize, just again for like anybody who wants to travel and all that kind of stuff like that. I think nowadays in our modern society, now that remote work, especially after 2020 and all that became sort of a standard thing, that's probably a new way to really like enable yourself if you want to travel and compete or train or whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say, we were talking about sort of that jiu-jitsu dream of being able to travel and do jiu-jitsu and compete and everything. And it was kind of weird because when I started doing it, it wasn't as if I made this decision to like pursue this dream. I sort of fell into it. It was like I just started competing and getting addicted to it and everything. And then retrospectively looking back at it, I was like, wow, this is kind of my dream that I'm living, to be able to travel and compete, be a jiu-jitsu nomad, all that kind of stuff. And I think it's easy to say when you're set up in a job situation that allows you to do that, like what happened with me. But I think the biggest thing I learned from that, and what I would pass on to other people who are thinking about just doing something that they think would be really cool, is to just like step by step, just take the actions necessary to like build that for yourself and literally just like do it,
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of things that actually, I think the main thing, I say this with obvious like caveats and everything, but the main thing I think that stops us from doing these things we want to do and achieving these things we want to achieve is just ourselves. We sort of block ourselves from doing stuff. And a lot of it comes from, I had to reconcile this idea of like the amount of risk that I was taking doing all this travel and competing and everything, because it costs money. There's like this huge risk of injury, which I'm injured now, unfortunately. But, there's so many risks. And I think if you're looking at the situation and you're looking at all the things that are within your control and you want to do this thing, just take steps to mitigate those risks that are within your control. And then if now you've enabled yourself to do that thing, just start doing it. There's not like a perfect time. There's not like a perfect way to do it. You just do the first step, which is like if, maybe you got that remote job now or whatever, and there's a competition in, I don't know, Atlanta. You're like, okay, I'm signing up and I'm going. Or there's a gym you want to try. Maybe you want to go, I don't know, visit Marcelo in New York or something. Glad he's doing okay, by the way.
Yeah.
Just book the ticket and go. Like, I don't want to preach like being reckless or anything like that, but that's the biggest thing I learned from all this is that we can do a lot more, I think, than we think we can do.
Yeah. I tell people all the time, especially like, as an owner of a company and then with remote employees, especially when I see that people are getting overwhelmed, one step at a time, just put one foot in front of the other. I even have to tell that to myself sometimes when like you wake up in the morning, you get a bunch of emails, clients are texting. I tell them, just one foot in front of the other, it'll all get done. Like it's an overwhelming feeling to see so much work on your plate. And then you're like, okay, one email, put on your do not disturb, one email at a time, one phone call. And all of a sudden by lunchtime, you're like, wow, I got through all that and it's not that big of a deal. So I'm always preaching that to people, but I know it's, when it comes to jiu-jitsu, I think it's a little bit more daunting because it's not only, it's the money, it's the physical, like the things that you just listed. It's a little bit harder to give that advice to somebody. I know for me, I don't do it. So to give somebody that advice, it's difficult for me to do. But what if I was talking to some of the younger guys out there that wanted to do something like you're doing, one competition at a time, try it once, or maybe you set yourself up on, I know that there are X competitions, X, Y, Z competitions. I know that I can drive to them and then get back home, right? Like try it once and then come back, see how it went, plan the next one, right? You don't have to plan out the year. You don't have to overwhelm yourself with so much. Start small. Maybe it's just one, maybe it's three, right? But yeah, I left my job. I left my career. A big part of when I left the marketing company I was working for was to do this more full time. And then I knew I needed to supplement that money. So I opened up Black Belt Digital Marketing. And then that took off. So now I'm still doing more marketing than podcasting. So it's good. I didn't expect it. I'll even tell a client when they start a new business, I'll say, sometimes you have to let the business steer. You don't know where it's going to be tomorrow. It's going to tell you. It's going to tell you what it needs, where it's going to be, how much time you have to put in. But again, it all starts with that first step. So hats off to you for doing this. This is, it's really cool. Do you feel like jiu-jitsu could be a career? You started a podcast, right? You're traveling. Do you feel like it's at some point in the future, this might be a career path for you?
Well, that's sort of my intention, I guess. Now,
don't tell your boss. We won't tell your boss.
Yeah, let's hide this episode. But before I get into that, by the way, I want to say I admire the risk taking that you've done to pursue what you want to do. Because
thank you.
There's always the fear of something not being successful, right? Or not that you wouldn't be successful, but what I mean is like this fear of failure that everybody has, when taking risks, right? So I applaud you on doing what you've done.
Thank you.
With the sort of making jiu-jitsu a career, I've been asking myself that question because there's typically a few ways that people make jiu-jitsu careers right now. Actually, I think there's two main ways. One is to open a gym and run a gym. Actually, let's say three main ways. One way is to open a gym and run a gym. Second way is to teach at a gym, which may overlap with the first one. And then the third way is to be a pro athlete that's winning, what is it, 10th? How much are they winning at ADCC right now? It's not that much. Craig went on a rant about this in a video recently, but
I think they pay the most out of any tournament system. Anything similar, more than IBJJF. I don't think there's anybody that pays more. We had a gentleman by the name of Ben Stark on. He's owns ATT Palm Beach Gardens, excuse me. And he was talking about that even in the early 2000s, they were paying the most. And I still think that that's the case. But you're talking about the big ADCCs, not these smaller tournaments, right? So, there's not a lot of the money Go. I'll let you finish. But yeah, the money is not just in the sponsorships or not just in the competitions. You've got to be doing sponsorships. You've got to be selling instructionals, right? Gordon Ryan, it's more than a year or two ago now that he shared what he was making a month. It's like $1 million a month on instructionals. Do you remember seeing that?
Yeah, it's absurd. Yeah, he like posted like a spreadsheet or something with the numbers, right?
I think it was like a Shopify account or something. Yeah, it said basically the numbers. So you have to be doing things around jiu-jitsu. So like you're only one injury away from no longer being a sponsored athlete, right? So like if you depending on the sponsorships, there's a problem, right? But guess what? If you can build a name, Gordon is hurt right now, right? He's not competing right now. He's out again. Mm-hmm. But his instructionals, he can still do his instructionals, and he's got a library that he still can essentially probably live off of, right? So you really have to kind of figure out what are the things around jiu-jitsu that you can also do. Because even coaching or owning a gym, you're one injury away from not being able to coach, not being able to necessarily run that gym. So these things around jiu-jitsu, I think, are super important and what people have to realize.
Yeah, I totally see what you're saying and agree with that 100%. And I sort of feel like that too right now with this is a very minor injury compared to a lot of the injuries people get in jiu-jitsu. It's just the AC joint separation that I got a couple weeks ago. But I was even just like woke up this morning, I was in the shower, like, you get into those weird thinking modes in the shower. I don't know why we start thinking so much in the shower, but I was
I do my best work in the shower and on the toilet.
Yeah.
I do my best thinking.
That's it. I write all my video scripts in the shower, most of them. Literally, I'm just sitting there writing the script, and then I got my phone like next to the shower. Like I'm gonna ruin my.
You know what it is, because your mind's not necessarily 100% focused on. So if I'm on the toilet and I'm scrolling through Instagram and then an idea comes to me, or I'm thinking about something in the shower, it's because our minds are kind of turned off to that idea, right? You're not necessarily focused on like problem solving, and it just starts to happen kind of in the background, right? I think that's why those things like. I'm an advocate. I tell my employees, like, take a break every hour. Take 5 minutes, take 10 minutes, take the dog for a walk, grab a coffee. When you shut off your mind and then you come back and reset it, you're doing better. I'm going to get more out of you. You're going to be more productive. You're going to be happier. So like those times in the shower and on the toilet when I'm not thinking about work, jiu-jitsu, like something comes to me. And I think your mind's always working on the problem, whether you're really like focused on it or not. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And it's interesting you say that. Yesterday I was listening to a podcast with a guy named Dr. Cal Newport. I think he's a theoretical computer scientist. He was on the podcast with Andrew Huberman. And Cal Newport, he wrote a book called Deep Work. And in one of the sections, he talks about something exactly like what you're saying. I forget the term he used, but it's something to do with the fact that when you're in the shower on the toilet, you're in this mode of like undirected thinking. You don't have a goal that you're trying to accomplish. Your brain is just sort of.
Well, I am when I'm on the toilet. I am trying to accomplish a goal.
Okay, I'll give you that. That's a good point. It's not a goal you have to think too hard about. I hope, so.
Not all the time. Well, when you get a little older, you really do got to think about it a little bit more. Okay, but go ahead.
That's fair. And so one of the things he talks about is walking. And how walking is one of those big modes of like, I'm screwing up the terminology he uses, but I'm going to call it undirected thinking. And I walked like 13 miles yesterday because I can't really do any sort of training because of my shoulder. So I'm like, okay, how can I get a workout in? And now I've just been walking like miles every day.
That's good, man.
Yeah. But I noticed that it's making my brain work better, and I'm starting to try to think about how I can sort of use that, what, you're talking about, this mode of thinking where things just kind of come to you. And if there's any way to use that as when thinking about jiu-jitsu, like learning jiu-jitsu. So I've been just trying to think about ways to, sort of learn jiu-jitsu in a self-directed way. And, it's pretty fascinating, but hopefully there's a secret we can unlock.
Well, I mean, like let's talk about it in terms of jiu-jitsu, right? When I'm training or I'm rolling, now I could say like, if I'm sitting through instruction, happens to me all the time where my mind just starts like I'm that guy that's like watching the coach and I'm absolutely thinking about something else. But once we get to the rolls, I mean, right, what was I thinking about during that roll? You weren't thinking about problems. You weren't thinking about injuries. Maybe like, I got to watch out for this arm. But you're not thinking about work. You're not thinking about relationships. You're not thinking about money, the flat tire on the car, the nail that you got in the car tire, right? Like, you're not thinking about those things. Well, you can really come out of that. If you really focused at the end of that and go, what was I thinking about during that time? You'd be like, my mind was kind of blank, right? I'm only working on this problem solving. And it's why, like, I think when we get in the car on the way home after jiu-jitsu, like, that's when I have like the most clarity, I think, in the entire day. Everything is gone. The stress is off of my shoulders. I used to tell my wife, my ex-wife, like, if you want to argue with me, get me as soon as I come home from jiu-jitsu. Or like, if you want to have a conversation and you really want to get your way, I'm like clay. I'm a little ball of clay in that moment. You'll get exactly what you want out of me, most likely, if it's within reason, because I'm the most relaxed that I've been the entire day. And I kind of find, like, again, like, I can go home, take a shower, and work more, get more done in an hour or two of work in the evening after I've gotten rid of all that stress than I do maybe sometimes all day.
Yeah, I 100% relate to that. And I think pretty much everybody that trains jiu-jitsu relates to that, right?
Yeah.
I think that's why we get addicted. And I think there's just something about not only really intense exercise, but also this sort of intense exercise that forces you to also focus. But it's almost a flow state, like you said. Like, a lot of the time when we're rolling, it's this intense exercise with this complete focus, but the focus isn't necessarily like making your brain break in the same way that it would be breaking if I was like sitting here trying to figure out like a math problem. Like, that's stressful. Whereas, that type of focus that's required while you're rolling in jiu-jitsu, there's just something about that. And that thing about like those moments immediately after rolling, like sitting on the wall after some good sparring, like just talking to people, those are some of the best moments.
I feel like I use the word like clarity. Like, I'm thinking so clear. I'm free of the stress. I'm probably the most myself in that moment, right? Like, I'm not worried about all of these other things. I'm just me. And like, you have great conversations. Again, I go back to if I'm in a relationship, I would tell the best time to talk to me is after that intense workout. It's one of the reasons, like, I always like love having somebody in my in my relationships, having a partner that wants to work out with me, because even just working out, lifting weights, running, walking, whatever it is, there's just some clarity in those moments. And it's like, I think it's like a really good thing to be sharing. We talked about it on the last podcast about jiu-jitsu relationships, and the guest, Gabe Tejada down here, he owns 10th Planet Miami. And we were talking about the successes and failures of jiu-jitsu relationships. And like, if you have two people that train together on the mats, and then it could go bad. But I do think that having something in common, either doing jiu-jitsu, or if you're like, this is something we're incredibly passionate about, right? We're so passionate about jiu-jitsu. If you're with somebody that doesn't have whatever they're passionate about, but when they don't share that, I think it's hard for them to recognize, like, your passion is not a weird obsession. Like, and it's something that they should water, that they should help grow. Like, they should be one of your biggest cheerleaders. Versus like, what are you doing? Come on, let's go to the movies. What, you don't have to train today. You could skip it, right? Like, that voice versus somebody that's like, fucking go get it. I'm going to go for, like, having a partner that's maybe, especially into something physical, like, or something healthy. Like, hey, I'm a runner, or your partner's a runner, or they work out, or they do CrossFit. I think it's very hard for somebody that doesn't have something that they're passionate about like this, for them to relate. And I found that in my own relationship. So I know I'm like, what we were talking about, is my next girlfriend, wife, does she have to be somebody that does jiu-jitsu? I do know that she has to be equally passionate about something similar, something that's healthy, something that's physical, because otherwise I don't feel like they'll get it.
Miss your morning routine, BioPro.
Special thank you to the crew over at Flow and Roll for all their support. Flow and Roll is renowned for their incredible no-gi rash guards, shorts, and leggings. Flow and Roll has quickly become the premier custom apparel provider for academies big and small throughout the United States. Reach out today to discuss your custom order and ask about their incredible pre-order program. You can send an email to flowandroll@gmail.com or visit their Instagram at flow_n_roll and shoot them a direct message. And yes, they can create an awesome custom gi for your academy as well. Visit flowandroll.com to check out their awesome designs, and while you're there, pick up a Jiu-Jitsu Dummy signature tee exclusively at flowandroll.com. And remember, you'll get 20% off your purchase of t-shirts, rash guards, or gis with code JJD.
Right.
Makes sense?
Yeah, I 100% agree with that, actually. I was in a relationship, too, where that wasn't quite the case, but it was potentially headed in that direction, like when the partner doesn't understand the importance of jiu-jitsu, because it kind of seems stupid on the surface, like, oh, jiu-jitsu is just like some sport you're doing. It's just, it's just
you're going to roll around with sweaty men. I don't get the appeal.
Exactly, right. But I think that goes back, and like I've literally turned into a walking meme because of jiu-jitsu. Like, I bought some pants from Kings that are like, they're gi pants, but they're like streetwear. I became like super minimalist when I started traveling last year as a nomad, just like carrying around a few shirts. So literally every single, that would be a lie. Most of the clothes I own are like competition t-shirts.
Yeah. I'm
wearing like a jiu-jitsu hoodie, like these sweatpants or tatami sweatpants, like not sponsored, but hey, tatami. Yeah. And that didn't happen because of no reason. I think, tell me if this is the case for you or not, but I think like where these obsessions come from is it's something higher than it just being a hobby. It's something, I think, related to people's mental health. At least it is for me.
Sure.
Because if I really go back to first principles on why I'm doing this sport and so obsessed with it, it's because of like the way it helps my mind.
Yeah.
And so I think this is my theory. I think, if I had a wife who was saying, who's saying like, oh, why are you going to jiu-jitsu? Why are you doing this again? Let's go to the movies or whatever. What I'm hearing is, I don't respect this thing that helps your mental health, or I don't respect, right? So I assume that's where those issues come from. I don't know, but what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. What I like to tell people is, like, I think jiu-jitsu makes me a better person. I think it made me a better husband, even though it was a sore spot in my marriage. I think it makes me a better leader in my job. Wasn't probably known for my patience before. I'm super patient. The fire alarm went off here, and you said like I didn't skip a beat. I'm just like, it's gonna go off. Why am I gonna fucking flip out about the fire alarm going off? What am I gonna accomplish? But that's not the old me. The old me would have been like, come on, Christian, what the fuck? Come on. Mm-hmm. We really? What are we gonna do now? We got to cut. Like, fuck it, we cut it. Whatever. We're gonna cut it out and we move on. Why? It takes more energy to be negative and to be upset than it does to be, to be just calm and be nice, right? But I got that from jiu-jitsu and being around a bunch of people who, let me say this, like, jiu-jitsu weeds out assholes. You can't be an asshole because you're going to get beat up in the gym really bad, or if you're an asshole that's beating everybody up, nobody's going to want to roll with you. Like, it weeds out bad people and people with bad intentions, and you wind up being around a really good group of people that wind up being like-minded in this thing. The people that I roll with are from all different walks of life, firemen, accountants, attorneys, business owners, moms, stay-at-home wives, moms, but we all have this goal, and to be around people like that who have this same healthy obsession, right? You could be an alcoholic, unhealthy, right? But this healthy obsession, right? And again, something that helps clear our minds, really helps us focus on our mental. I mean, not even focus on it, but it's helping us with our mental state, whether we realize it or not, between the friends, having a goal, the clarity that it gives you, and like, you know, the release of that stress. You know, think about somebody who comes home from work, right? That person that I don't understand, somebody who comes home from work every day, has a glass of wine, and then is scrolling through TikTok all day for the whole night. You're not giving your body the opportunity to release that stress. You're covering it up with the alcohol. You're covering it up with the social media. You need a release. If that could be walking for some people, that could be running, right? Or that could be something more physical, like weight training, hitting a bag, you know, boxing, whatever it may be. You know, I just happen to find this thing and it works incredibly well for me. And yes, I can't say that I had any mental issues like depression or anything like that. But I mean, it's definitely helped me avoid that. When I was getting divorced, I threw myself into jiu-jitsu. I was probably normally like a 3 to 4 day a week guy, and I became a 5 to 6 day a week guy. And it got me through that. Get out of the house. We were still living together. Get out of the house more. But probably more importantly, I needed just, you know, my training partners to check in on me. Hey, how you doing? Hey, I know what you're going through. Everything okay? And sometimes I, you know, a 1 hour session, but then an hour in the parking lot talking to my friends, you know, and that's all come from jiu-jitsu. So, you know, again, maybe I didn't have mental issues before that, but it's certainly, I think it is my therapy. You know, I'm not somebody that's going to go talk to a therapist, but this is my therapy. And I think it's like that for a lot of people, right? We see the Instagram handles and all that stuff. Jiu-jitsu saved my life and all that stuff. So I do believe for a lot of people, it is that. It is something that if they didn't have, they'd be drinking, they'd be at the bar, they'd be smoking, you know, they'd be doing other things that are just unhealthy.
Yeah, 100%. So I don't talk about this often, but the reason I started competing was because I was going through divorce.
Okay.
And I say this because I relate to what you're saying about sort of throwing yourself into jiu-jitsu. And actually, you know, sort of back in 2020, I was probably borderline alcoholic. Right now I'm about 160 pounds. I think I weighed like 215 pounds. Wow. I have pictures of this, but I started training sort of like during that phase, and there were a lot of times I would show up to training just completely hungover and sweaty, and you know, I was a mess. Sure. And then when that relationship ended, that sort of kicked off my, you know, I just went full throttle into jiu-jitsu, and it's exactly what you're saying. It was sort of to like this like absurd extent to where I was like spending all of my money traveling and training every single day, competing on the weekends, just as much as possible. And I became the healthiest I've ever become. I stopped drinking. I don't know. I did completely transform as a person. And I say all the time that I think jiu-jitsu, and especially competition, is kind of a microcosm of life. And it teaches you a lot of good character traits, I think. Sort of what you were saying about your example of the fire alarm just going off. You're like, man, I can't do anything about it. It's only going to harm me to be upset about it. And that's a very like small thing on the surface, but I think it's really big underneath, because it's a really important lesson that I think is learned from jiu-jitsu and competition. Because when you go into those environments, you start understanding that there's so many things outside of your control, and you learn to sort of turn all of that energy inwards towards yourself and think about what you're in control of. And you're not in control of a lot of things. You're just in control of your actions and how you decide to perceive things. If you decide to, you know, enjoy the moment or be pissed off at the moment. And that's one of the things why I encourage people, if they're interested in competing, to compete, because I think all of those lessons that you learn in competing transfer so well to so many areas outside of your life. And like, I'm a totally different person now. I became, you know, way more confident, way more like humble and accepting of people, and, you know, just open to the world. And so that's one of the big reasons I encourage. So
now, did you start jiu-jitsu because of your divorce? So tell me about that first time you stepped on the mat. What brought you there? Did somebody recruit you? Did you find it? You know, where did this start tell us about that exact moment.
So this was actually during, what was it, 2020, 2021? It was during that time.
So like we're coming out of COVID, right? I mean, it's right, kind of COVID-ish times.
Yeah, it was actually while COVID was in effect, and I was avoiding saying the word COVID because I don't know if that demonetizes you at all. I don't know how that works.
No, I'm not worried about. I don't worry about that too much because our stuff comes more from sponsors. I'm not worried about.
Cool. Okay.
YouTube stuff.
So, okay, I'll say the correct terminology.
Yeah. I noticed you. I noticed you avoided saying something like that before. You were like that thing we went through when you were referring to COVID. Yeah, I'm not too worried about that. No.
Okay. Okay. So I actually started. Man, my memory's so bad right now, but it was sort of at the tail end, but when gyms still weren't open, and I wasn't going through a divorce yet or anything.
No, okay.
So the funny thing is I was training at Kyotera Academy right here in San Jose, the headquarters, and my then wife was friends with a girl from work who was married to the morning class instructor, Vitor Pascual. Really great guy and great coach. And he just got me into the morning class. I had done jiu-jitsu. Actually, my dad introduced me to jiu-jitsu when I was like, I don't know, probably around like 5 or 6 or something.
Okay.
Back when they were still wearing gis in the UFC, I think.
Yeah.
And
how old are you?
So,
how old are you?
I'm 31.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I had started done jiu-jitsu off and on for a little while, kind of throughout my teenage years and everything. And I was in the Army. I did a little bit of jiu-jitsu at this gym called Team Rock, where Tim Kennedy, if your listeners know who Tim Kennedy is, UFC veteran, Green Beret. We were at the same. That's where he used to train at one point, I think, because we were on Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and that's where one of the 7th Special Forces group is there. Anyway, and I did Muay Thai for a long time, so I'd always been in doing combat sports. That's actually why I'm wearing this thing right now. I've been trying this nasal dilator because I got punched in the nose like 10 years ago at Team Rock, actually.
Yeah.
And it deviated my septum. And I didn't realize, but for the past 10 years, I just haven't been able to breathe properly.
Okay.
And then just a few days ago, I put on this thing. It's like those nasal strips.
Is that the new one that kind of has the magnets?
Exactly.
Right, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sponsor? It's okay if it is.
Not a sponsor.
Not yet.
But not yet. This is intake breathing.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah, but it's I'm a blue belt. I'm looking for every sponsor.
Yeah.
Right? If any CBD companies out there, let's go. But so after that, long story, but Muay Thai was kind of my main sport for a long time, with jiu-jitsu off and on. And then that thing happened where my wife's friend introduced me to the coach, and I just got onto the mats, and that's actually how I started.
Okay.
And then the competition stuff was actually sort of around the time that I was going through that divorce. So it's two separate things, but both very pivotal to my life. I would not be here. Everything that's happening right now, I wouldn't be talking to you right now if it weren't for jiu-jitsu and all that kind of stuff. So,
do you feel like that you could date somebody in jiu-jitsu? Would you limit yourself to somebody who does jiu-jitsu? I'm so curious about it because I'm in that moment of trying to find somebody, and when I do meet somebody, it's kind of like, they don't work out, they don't do jiu-jitsu, they don't have that thing, and I know it makes me nervous because I don't want to go down that same path again, because I know eventually I feel in the back of my mind, maybe it's just something that I carry, but I feel like at some point they're going to be like, jiu-jitsu again? Really? The podcast makes us money. We get clients because people watch the podcast and then come to us for black belt digital marketing. Like, this all ties together. It wasn't the intent. I started this just for fun with a bunch of friends, and then it turned into something, and I opened the marketing company later. But I kind of feel like I said it before, I need to have somebody that's passionate about something, and I would like that passion to be something rooted in health or, some type of sport, because I see myself, knock on wood, doing this as long as I possibly can, do you feel like, you would need to date somebody that is either this passionate about something, or does it have to be jiu-jitsu? Are you dating, and has it happened?
Yeah, good question. 1,000% they would have to be into something.
Yeah.
I'm going to piss off my strength and conditioning coach for saying this, but I don't care if they're in CrossFit. I don't care. Yeah, he's not a fan of CrossFit, but yeah, so the thing right now is like everything I'm doing is so structured, and I'm literally doing jiu-jitsu stuff from start to end of my day. Everything I do revolves around jiu-jitsu. So at the moment, I'm not, a girlfriend is not on my mind right now at all.
Okay.
It's like the last thing on my mind. But that's just because that's a result of what I'm doing right now. It's not compatible with having a relationship. And that's like being a nomad last year and traveling around and competing every week. Like, you would, in order to have that lifestyle, you would either have to be single like I was, or, have somebody who's okay with just like you leaving up for a year.
Or traveling with you. Or if you found somebody that did jiu-jitsu that traveled with you. That's where, yeah.
Right. And I think that's pretty, I would imagine that's rare. But yeah, for me,
ladies getting Josh's DMs. What is it? At Josh Beam BJJ? Is that right?
Yeah, there you go. You're the best wingman.
Hey, ladies.
Yeah.
I can't even get one myself. I don't know. Good luck. You're much younger than me, so you have a better chance.
Yeah, that's funny. But yeah, totally with you on that. Like this new perspective I got, like what I would want in a girlfriend or a wife is they've gotta, one, respect the jiu-jitsu, right?
Yeah.
And second, they've gotta have something that they can do that fulfills them. I think that's the maybe one of the bigger issues is like not having dependency on the other person to fulfill that need. Like you have to have a way to do that on your own.
Yeah. If they're not passionate about something that I'm repeating what you're saying, I'm guessing, just saying it in a different way. You can't be the thing that fills the hole in their heart, I guess, right? Or like you can't be that thing that they're passionate about. Like they want them to be passionate about you, but you can't be that only thing, right? They need to have something and recognize like the power of like the physical aspects of what we do, right? I think that's important. And unless you're doing it, you don't really understand it. And I think it's super important. Now, am I meeting people that don't do jiu-jitsu? Yes. Am I meeting people that don't do, that aren't into the gym? Yes. But I'm very upfront when I meet somebody, whether it's from a dating app or just meeting somebody. I'm like, I'm not looking for, like Miss America. It doesn't have to be some bodybuilder. Like, I need you to be passionate about something healthy. Now, you may not know this. My listeners know I had a heart attack 7-8 years ago. Mm-hmm. I was 43. I'm 50 now. So I had a heart attack. And so being healthy is even more important to me. So I think when people hear that, then they're like, oh, I get it. So like, jiu-jitsu was already important to me. I've been doing it for a couple of years, but having had the heart attack and just changing my lifestyle, I need somebody that supports that. I've been in a relationship where she didn't want to go to Whole Foods and get healthier food or like to buy organic because it was too expensive. And I'm like, the alternative is I die, I die sooner. So even like my junk food is if I eat something bad, it's like from Whole Foods. It's like the healthiest version of what I can get, right? But I was in a relationship where the person didn't want to even spend the money because he said it was too expensive. And I'm like, aren't I worth it? Am I not worth it? And ultimately, the alternative is a health bill, even with insurance. Like you're going to lose time at work. You're going to have health bills. You're going to die younger. I'd rather spend that little bit of money on healthy food than, and live a little bit longer. And that was just something that that she didn't understand and come around to. So that's why I'm like so passionate about it now. Like I've got to have that somebody. Also, like I want somebody pulling me. I want to look like the lazy one in the relationship, right? I want somebody who's like, come on, you got to go for a run in the morning, or you got to do that. Like I've never had that. I've always been the one like, come to the gym with me. Come on. I'm sick of being the motivator. It would be wonderful if I found somebody that was motivating me. So, I mean, that's the way I think about it, so.
Yeah. I kind of, that resonates with me as well. Cause what I kind of hear you saying is you want somebody who's going to be, pushing you forward for growth rather than making you feel like you're regressing, whether that's especially into like an unhealthier state than you could be in. Right. Yeah. And then the thing that's allowing you, one of the big pillars of that, for us, we're on a jiu-jitsu podcast. One of the big pillars of that is the jiu-jitsu aspect. Right. Yeah. But really that's, that could be a lot of things. That could be running, that could be CrossFit, that could be, I don't know, archery. Do people do archery?
I don't want to piss anybody off. Is that a sport? Like a real super intense? It's a sport, but is it a sport where you really got to work out? Like, I don't know. I'm going to piss off I'm going to piss off all the Joe Rogan fans.
I know. That's what I was about to say. Yeah, your Joe Rogan audience went.
Yeah, right. We lost all the archery people.
It's a big group.
Yeah, right. all the jiu-jitsu people who also do archery, they just turned this off.
Yeah.
I mean, you're taking. You said something before, so I'm gonna give you a little bit of advice, and I may not be the best person to give you this advice. You're focused on jiu-jitsu and you're focused on this work around jiu-jitsu and the podcast, which we could talk about, and all things jiu-jitsu, right? You kind of said that before. I'm focused on this and I don't have time for the relationship. Don't do that. Leave yourself open to it still. Because what you wind up finding, I didn't get married till I was in my 40s. Now I had a daughter when I was 20. So I also saw that other side and I was just like, ooh, don't want to get married young, So, but don't put it off forever. Don't close off your mind. Like, be open to it still. I'm sure you are, like, if you met the right person, right? But don't say, I don't want that relationship because of work, because of this. I'm 50 now. Don't do it, because then you find yourself at 40, at mid 40s and even 50, and it's just like, you haven't had a meaningful relationship. Do you want to have kids? And all that stuff. Like, don't put it off forever. As someone who's been there, who put work first for a really long time, I used to blame the women that I met, and I was probably just as much responsible and crazy and wild, and moved to Florida from New York at 25 and woohoo, just partied it up. But it was always blaming work or saying, I'm too busy for a wife, a girlfriend, whatever. So don't put it off so much. Leave your mind open to it. Don't close it off completely. Don't close that door completely. Just advice from an older guy, an old timer. You wind up the time does fly by. I've got a 30-year-old daughter. I've got a 20-year-old. She's gonna be 21-year-old stepdaughter. Like, things move really fucking fast, man. So don't let life pass you by. And relationships are important. So don't close yourself off completely.
Yeah, I should listen to that. Yeah, I'm kind of on the extreme end of the spectrum right now. So
yeah, because you also you kind of have to be open to it. I do believe in, like, if you want to call it the power of the secret. Or just like, the laws of attraction, really, if you don't like that book, but, laws of attraction, right? If you open yourself up, you say, I want a blue Mustang, and you're constantly saying you want a blue Mustang, eventually somebody's going to be like, hey, my buddy's got a blue Mustang for sale, man. Let's go, right? So you just open yourself up to it. If you say you don't want a relationship, you might not, I want to focus on work. I don't want to meet anybody. But once you say, like, you start not only saying it, acting like that, smiling at that person in the store that you might not have smiled at, right? Because now you are open to it, like, right? The laws of attraction. If you put it out there, it'll come to you. So, I'm a big believer in that. But I was that person that was just like, no, work came first. It's fun. I met my wife after moving into an office, and I was just like, I'm not fucking around with any of the girls here. I'm gonna shit where I eat. And then I did open myself up to it, and she was the manager of the building that I was renting from. So like, once I opened myself up to it, I was just like, you know what, I'm ready. And she was right there, right? So, but I went into that going, no, I'm just going to work. I'm going to build this business. It's going to take a couple of years. And then, as soon as I opened myself up to it, it happened. So, again, advice from an old time. You can tell me to go fuck myself and jump off a bridge, but, I've been there. What did you say? You're 30, what?
31. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to have kids? You're interested in having
See,
a family?
that's another thing. I think if I'm taking your advice, I'll say I'm open to it. We'll go with that. Yeah.
All right. Good. All right. So let's get into some listener questions, man. We had a bunch. We had let's start with Fremont Jiu-Jitsu. He did send a bunch of questions. Let me say.
Oh, cool. That's Denny. That's my friend.
Oh, is a buddy of yours?
Yeah. So he owns. Shout out to Fremont Jiu-Jitsu. His name is Denny Choi. He's for the Bay Area folks, or maybe other people in the States. You might know JG Academy. He's a JG Academy affiliate. Here in Fremont. Really great guy. Yeah. Shout out Denny. Thanks for sending the question.
Okay. So he did send a bunch of questions. I'm gonna pick out a couple here, and then we'll go to some others. It says, can he speak on nerves before competing, and if they are still prevalent? Was there a tournament number or experience that he noticed a big change in nerves?
That's a good question. People ask me that question a lot, is do I still get nervous after competing so many times? And I think it's helpful to know for anybody who we're meeting for the first time here on the podcast, that I've now competed in, because I started keeping track of the numbers. It's kind of goofy, but I've now competed in 248 jiu-jitsu matches over, I think it's like 65 tournaments or something. And these tournaments have been in all across the U.S., competed once in Brazil now, Japan, all over Europe. So they've mostly been like IBJJF. So I guess, there's other bigger tournaments and stuff that you can do. Like I haven't been in a position where I've had to go step onto like a 80cc world stage, right? Like that's crazy. Like there's levels to this, right? But, yeah. So I still do get nervous for competition, and I think that part of it might be because of my own doing. I try to not stay in comfortable positions, not jiu-jitsu positions, but I mean I try not to be comfortable while competing, because that means I'm not growing. And what I mean by that is when I first started competing, huge adrenaline dump. I think everybody experiences that. This giant adrenaline dump, this anxiety, all these like thoughts that are going through your head, like people watching you. It's like loud. There's the lights and everything. It's like hard to focus. I think anybody who has competed has experienced this thing. It's like way louder and more chaotic than it feels like it should be. I think that's the biggest thing. Just loud. It's weird.
More or less nervous competing at like home or on the road where you maybe know there aren't as many people that know you or that are personally invested? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I haven't been more nervous when I've competed here at home with my, at my home gym with my team. I haven't been more nervous, but I made a giant mistake when I competed at the Santa Cruz Open and my whole team was there. I let that sort of make me want to win more than I should. So when I didn't win, I just got super upset and I got really like sad and angry and everything. And that was something that hadn't happened at all, really. I mean, it happened a few times, but it hadn't happened to that extent when I was just traveling around competing in, random places in Europe and everything. But that's something I would caution people against, is like really be mindful of your motivations and what's sort of driving you during the moment. Maybe some people do well hyping themselves up and getting like angry before matches, trying to kill their opponents. But for me, I realized that doesn't work, and it's not sustainable to try to force yourself into a certain mindset while competing. You just have to, at least for me, I just have to be mindful of how I'm feeling in the moment, because then I can sort of put that to the side. Like just understanding if I'm nervous, understanding if I'm having that adrenaline dump or whatever. There's this quote John Danaher says, which I always think about. It's who's that? Optimal. Yeah, it's some guy. He's got a weird accent.
Is that bald guy?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. He says warm body, cold heart. And as sort of an aphorism, a saying for the sort of optimal state you should be in while competing. And what he means by that warm body, cold heart. Warm body just means having yourself in a physical state where you're able to perform. So that means literally getting warmed up, right? Warm body, so that your body can perform. And then the cold heart piece comes from not cold as in like being mean, like not that usage of the word, but cold heart as in not in a mental state where you're like super hyped up. And equally not being in a state where mentally you're just like chilling.
Sure.
Sort of this like fine balancing act, but I find that sort of state works well for me, and that's when I feel like I perform my best. Like despite being nervous, like I still get nervous because like I try to sign up in divisions that are more challenging, or I try to, whenever I'm competing now, I try to work on new things in competition, which is really scary to do. Like right now in 2024, I've devoted myself to not pulling guard at all.
Were you traditionally a guard puller though?
Oh yeah.
Were you
So
more of a
like my
guard puller?
number one move all of my competing so far has been the butterfly ashi straight ankle lock.
Okay.
And so my so my opening gambit was always to just pull into single leg X and then, you know, attack the ankle. And then the tree sort of evolved from there. Like if I couldn't get the ankle, then come up on a sweep and try to pass and all that kind of stuff.
I think somebody that knew you said, ask him how many straight ankle locks he's got, something like that. I think that's in the mix here.
Down.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's in the mix here of one of the questions.
That's funny. What was I saying? Oh yeah. So like, I think that's why I think it's good to be nervous. I think if you're nervous, it's a signal that you're challenging yourself. And so I kind of seek a little bit of nervousness, even though it's not very comfortable to be nervous. And like, so I'm nervous every time I've competed this year so far. I'm super nervous because I can't pull guard. I have to try to stand up with these guys. And like my division, I'm kind of short for my division.
Okay.
So these guys are kind of big and tall and strong, and I'm trying to like take them down. It's it upsets me, but
So your own preference, just your preference, not nerves. Would you rather be competing at home, or do you enjoy this being on the road? Are there certain things, aspects that you just like more, you know, being away or being at home? Like, do you enjoy that your team is watching you? Or I mean, like, I never invited family to I did a few tournaments at my lower belts before the heart attack, and then I stopped. But I never invited family. My team might be there, but I never invited family. I just didn't want, in my mind, if I got beat up, I didn't want my family to see that. Especially starting jiu-jitsu later, and, you know, people in my family like, what are you doing? You're in your 40s. Now you want to be a martial artist? What the, you know? So I was comfortable in front of my team, but I never invited a friend or family to watch me compete.
Yeah, that's the weird thing is I don't really care about getting beat up.
Yeah.
I feel like I should, but I don't.
Yeah.
And like, but I hear that from a lot of people. A lot of people are worried about like bringing their girlfriend to a jiu-jitsu tournament or something because they don't want to get like beat up in front of their girlfriend.
Again, remember, I'm saying that as a, you know, when I was competing at white, blue, and then I did like one competition at purple, and I had just had the heart attack. I did one competition after the heart attack, and then I was like, I can't do this. This isn't working. Not at that point. I wasn't healthy yet.
Yeah.
But yeah. You know,
and no judgment.
Yeah. I was young. I was young in jiu-jitsu, so that was definitely my attitude there, where it was just like, man, if I get freaking crushed, you know, it's like, oof, family's gonna be like, all right, you know,
right.
That was me. But I mean, it's good if you've done so many competitions. I would guess at some point you're like, yeah, I don't care, you know.
But here's the thing. So there's, this kind of brings up a good point about like judgment during jiu-jitsu competitions. Sure. And I specifically want to say no judgment on you at all for like the fact that was a thing that caused you, you know, competition anxiety or whatever. Sure. Was this idea of having your family or friends there seeing you get beat up and then like having to talk to them afterwards and they're being like, what the fuck are you doing? Like,
why would you like,
also like, like, why are you like, you just got beat up. Why are you even trying to do that? Or like whatever things, you think might happen, not you, but just the generalized you.
Sure.
there's a lot of like self-judgment that happens for competitors, I think. And then there's a lot of judgment of other competitors' actions that happen. And I think specifically in competition, all sort of judgment up to a certain point. There's things that like are dick moves or whatever, but like you should suspend, I think, a lot of judgment as a competitor going into competition. And when I say suspend judgment, I mean suspend judgment of yourself and suspend judgment of other people. Because what we're doing when we're stepping into competition is something that's, I think, very unusual. Like in our day-to-day lives, we're just like waking up, getting coffee, going to work, doing whatever. Competing is like such an abnormal thing to be doing. Like we're not supposed to, like throughout human history, we do fight each other, but that's not something we're necessarily supposed to be doing.
Like we're willingly putting ourselves in a bad position. It's not like we're fighting for food, family, like for our home, our land, our territory, right? We're going, I want to go fight today. I'm going to go willingly pay somebody else to let me fight, right? I'm going to get, right? So it's different. Is that what you're kind of saying, right? Like we're in this weird situation of like we're willingly going into this battle?
You said it way better. Yeah, you said it exactly how I wanted to say it. We're putting ourselves in this really strange circumstance and then getting upset when we're nervous or getting upset when other people behave in strange ways.
Yeah.
And the thing about like suspending self-judgment is like the thing that happens when, and people talk to me about this all the time, like they tell me, you know, the things they're nervous about when they go into competition, and then like getting beat up in front of their family is like one of the big things. Another big thing is like learning that they might suck at jiu-jitsu, like they're not as good as they think they are. Or another thing is what else is there? Oh, like I have to win this competition, and if I don't win this competition, then I'm like, you know, that I'm worth nothing, or all these different fears. And what I think, at least what I've learned, is you just have to be mindful that those things exist. It's not like wrong for these thoughts to pop into your head, because a lot of people get these thoughts in their head about these things they're nervous about, and then they try to like suppress those things and like think that they have to overcome those things. But what I think instead is that it's okay that those thoughts exist and those things that make you nervous, they exist. And the important thing is that you just do the thing anyway.
Yeah.
Because what ends up happening, I think, the more you try to resist those thoughts and those feelings and everything, I think it sort of has the opposite effect and just amplifies it. Whereas if you're just like mindful, you're like, oh, my mind is kind of playing some tricks on me right now. Like it's telling me to be nervous about, like, it's telling me that if I lose this competition, this grappling industries in San Jose, if I lose this competition, then I just suck at jiu-jitsu and I'm worth nothing. Okay, well, that doesn't really make sense. But now that I understand that, I can just kind of allow it to exist and just decide to compete anyway, just still get on the mat. And like through that process of doing things in spite of feeling nervous or feeling bad or whatever, through the process of just deciding to take action, you learn a lot about yourself, and you kind of realize how much you can actually do. And I think that's where like courage comes from. That's where resilience comes from. That's where perseverance comes from. You don't build those traits without the thing that brings on those traits happening, if that makes sense. Like
sure.
you can't build courage without being scared.
Yeah.
If you're not scared, you don't have an opportunity.
And just because somebody has courage doesn't mean that they're not scared. Right.
Exactly. Courage is like taking action in spite of fear.
Yeah.
Right. If the fear didn't exist, you're not being courageous.
Sure.
You're
yeah.
Right. You know?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish your thought.
Oh, I was going to say, so like when people ask if I still get nervous and stuff, I don't get nervous for the same reasons I did when I first started competing. But I get nervous now for new reasons.
Okay.
And I think if I'm not nervous, that's a signal that I'm not challenging myself enough. So I think people should look at nerves and competition anxiety in a more beneficial way, in that it's like giving you opportunities to build your jiu-jitsu and build character traits.
So in all your travels, have you met some famous people or people that you look up to at these competitions? You have any good stories about somebody that you maybe met?
Yeah, I've been fortunate to meet a few famous faces. I met the coolest one. So I've ran into a lot of people. I trained at like Bernardo Faria's gym in Boston. I met Bernardo there. I met Marcos Tinoco. I've trained a few times in Austin. So I met John Danaher. I met
on first name basis, John Gordo, right?
right. Well, it's funny because I really look up to Danaher and like his instruction and everything. And it was funny taking my first class with him because him walking in onto the mat, it was sort of like seeing this mystical figure that I just saw in like armbar instructionals. And the thing that blew my mind was everybody was just referring to him as John. I was like, why are you not referring to him as like
John Danaher?
Right, like Mr. Professor Instructor John Danaher. Like, like, what are you doing? Everybody just calls him John. I'm like, okay, that's weird, but I guess I can do that. And then Nick Marigali, and then Nicky Rod at B Team, and you just meet these people because they're just at the gyms when you're there, right? And so that's been so cool just to like run into these people who I thought were these just like figures on YouTube or whatever.
Yeah.
But the coolest one was in Japan. Kolobot. I recently did a video about this, about my experience at the Asian Championship in 2023. Guy Mendez was there from Art of Jiu-Jitsu, Tynan Dalpra, and Kolobate, and then a few other of the AOJ competitors. I don't remember exactly who else, but Cole and Tynan were competing, and then they put on a seminar afterwards with with Guy Mendez and the other folks. And Tynan Dalpra taught us the gator roll, like that signature sort of flashy move that you see a lot of the AOJ athletes doing.
He kind of rolls over, like kind of.
Yeah,
he rolls over and kind of takes, like, gets side control, right? I think, like, rolls around to the other side.
Yeah, it's such a weird move to describe. It's actually, I think all of jiu-jitsu is kind of hard to describe in words.
Yeah.
But you're in a side smash position, and you're grabbing a collar and a pant leg, and then you do just this bizarre roll, like over their legs.
Yeah.
Like it's the flashiest looking thing, and you end up in side control.
He did it in like a no-gi competition the other day, didn't he?
Yeah, he did a no-gi.
He did it. They were like, look, he's doing the gator. Right.
Yeah, I was like, that's absurd.
Yeah.
The first time I saw it was at Euros. He did it at Euros. I was like, how are you doing this in like, the European champion? Like they just execute these moves at the highest level. It's insane. But I think that was my coolest experience. Just sort of, I don't know any of these guys, right? Like I've just bumped into them at like competitions and training. But that I think was my coolest experience, being around, sort of well-known people, just kind of on the periphery. But I think that's the big benefit, like for people if they're looking to train or compete, like you don't know who you're going to run to or run into, or who you're going to have the opportunity to train with. So that's a huge benefit.
This jiu-jitsu is like one of those sports where, how many sports are you playing? Like you don't just go down to play soccer and then see Messi on the field, right? Like that's probably not going to happen, right? Like
exactly.
You could be matched up against one of these big names in a freaking tournament, right? You could be, training or fighting against somebody, at higher belts, and be up against somebody that's like, holy shit, what is he doing here at this competition? Right? And wind up in a really weird situation. I mean, again, especially the people that you're talking about at black belt, right? You could be a young black belt fighting people that have been around, or been training since they were kids, and it's like a long time. So there are not many sports where you can wind up being on the mat and actually roll with your idols, if you want to call it that, right? What other sport can you do that? I can't name one other than maybe like actual, MMA training, boxing kind of thing, those scenarios where they're training in class with the regular folk,
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about these competitions. You just show up to an IBJJF Open and you'll see like the Mendez bros outside of, the Yellow Gates coaching Kolobate. It's like absurd. And Oh yeah, because you mentioned that. I just saw a video. Cade Ruotolo was at the Dallas Open
Yeah.
like this past weekend. One of my friends,
Competing.
yeah, competing,
Yeah.
And one of my friends, because he's trying to get points for Worlds, because as a black belt, right? For anybody listening, if you didn't know, you have to accumulate points in IBJJF in order to compete in the World Championship. But my friend was there at the Dallas Open. He sent a picture. He's like, imagine showing up to an IBJJF Open and Cade Ruotolo is your first opponent.
Yeah, he's in your fucking bracket.
Right. It's like that's the types of things you experience in jiu-jitsu competition.
Have you had that happen where you've been up against somebody, or at least maybe at blue belt, maybe, the student of somebody super famous that you're like, oh, wow, that's his coach?
Yes, that happened recently at the San Jose Open a few weeks ago. Maybe over a month ago at this point. Oh, man, I'm not going to remember his name now, but he, I believe, is the boyfriend of Andre Galvao's daughter.
Okay.
Like not that like makes a difference necessarily on like his. He was good. He beat me in the open class final, but not that like fame and notoriety necessarily determines the outcome of a match, right? But yeah, it was kind of bizarre that like you're rolling with somebody who's like 1 degree of separation from so and so, and I think that's just how it is in the jiu-jitsu community, like you said, right? It's you're just 1 degree of separation, or even 0 degrees of separation from some of the best in the world. It's crazy.
So, all right, let's. I had another question that I was going to ask from Fremont Jiu-Jitsu. So he says, since Josh must have visited so many schools, right? What is the number one thing that he thinks schools do wrong? And on the flip side, what are some of the things that you think more schools should consider doing?
Oh, interesting. Okay,
Careful.
I'm gonna be diplomatic here.
Yeah.
This is a blue belt who's never run an academy, who's about to give an answer to this. Yeah. Yeah, I can give it just from my perspective as a student, I guess, sort of the things I saw that were sort of trends or patterns, that maybe I necessarily wasn't a fan of. Let's see. So the first one was, what are most schools doing that I think is bad?
What is the number one thing that you think most schools do wrong?
Do wrong. Ooh, let's see. That's actually a really good question. I want to say something about oh man, that's actually really tough to say. I was gonna say like something about maybe not having a fully fleshed out curriculum, but this isn't most schools nowadays. I think I think a lot of schools nowadays have like a fleshed out curriculum, so you kind of know what you're going to be taught. But I have dropped into schools where it kind of seemed like the stuff that was being taught was kind of random. But I mean, there's benefits to that too. I'm trying to think. I don't know if there's really anything that stood out to me.
Okay. So I'll ask you something specific. We talked about this on 2 podcasts ago. A new guy comes into your gym. In your school, is that guy rolling day one? Is he going to be rolling with somebody on day one? Do they make him wait? What's your take on that? I'm sure you, as a blue belt, new guy comes in and coach says, "Hey, work with this guy." Are you going to wind up rolling with him after instruction?
I think I'm probably on the extreme end of the spectrum where I lean towards like letting everybody do everything given that it's like in a controlled environment.
Sure.
And as long as everybody's on the same page of like what the rules are.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. This is a good one. Now I've got an answer to the question about what I think most schools are doing wrong, I guess, but that's is I think the one thing that I see is a difference in understanding of what techniques are allowed in roles.
Okay.
So like wall rolling. And this isn't necessarily like, I think that something that people are doing wrong, but a lot of things aren't very clear. Like there's no boundaries or guidelines, sort of set up for rolls ahead of time. So sparring, I mean, specifically. So like, one recent example, like I was at a open mat with a guy from another gym, and we're in the gi, and he starts to like heel hook me in the gi, and he's a blue belt. Or no, he wasn't starting to heel hook. He started setting up like he was reaping the leg, right, as if to expose my heel for a heel hook. And so it's very unclear across schools sort of what like rule set you're following while you're doing rolls. So I think that stuff can kind of lead to like surprises or potentially injury. Yeah. Just kind of being clear on what the guidelines and boundaries are for sparring. I think when schools do that, I think it's because some schools do that. Like right before we're about to roll or whatever, they'll say, okay, hey guys, for this we're going to be following the IBJJF rules.
Okay.
Right. So if you're a blue belt, right, no heel hooks unless you talk to your partner and agree that you can do that. If you're two different belts rolling together, follow the rule set of the lower belt, things like that. It's like the basic sort of parameters of the rolling. It could go the opposite way and just be like, hey guys, we're gonna roll, like all attacks are allowed. We were working heel hooks today, so leg attacks are fine. There's a lot of schools that I've been to where that's just like the default option. It's like, okay, we can do all these leg attacks, we can do basically everything. But I think it's just like about sort of being clear. I think this is especially important because I don't see schools doing this when beginners are rolling. I think that's the big thing. So like by beginners, I mean like white and blue belts, right? And especially like new white belts, like they're just kind of thrown into the mix without the parameters of the sparring being set. And then people are wondering why injuries are happening. Right, like I've never run an academy, so I'm sure there are issues that I'm not aware of for like sort of trying to manage this stuff. But you just need like, I think, attentive coaching, and clear parameters and boundaries on the sparring. And like a lot of this stuff, I think if you just implement things like that, you can allow people to get the most out of their training while limiting injuries.
Sure.
I don't know. This is just a theory.
Yeah, no, I agree. My coach had a talk with the class the other day, and I'm of this mindset, especially for low. Let's just say, blue belt and white and blue. We tend to watch videos when we're at that level, and then we bring something into the school that, let's call it pressure testing. Like it hasn't been pressure tested, or at least not by our coach. We might be doing something to a blue belt, might do something to a white belt. And when the white belt doesn't know how to defend because he hasn't been taught that move, right? Because usually, right, when we learn a move, I know in my school, we learn the move and then we learn the counter. And we also learn, how am I a good partner when I'm letting my partner train that move on me or, do that move on me, and what my reaction should be. Simple, like sometimes we were working sweeps the other day, and we called attention to the coach called attention to the fact that your hand could be flat on the mat and stuck when you're getting swept, and you're going to hurt your wrist, right? So it's like either allow your partner to pull his hand out, or if, again, a higher belt will just got to turn his hand like this. You're about to be swept. Don't keep it flat. Put it here, and then, he rolls you and you're fine. But I think a good rule of thumb for lower belts is don't try something that your coach hasn't taught, mainly because the guy that you're going to try it on doesn't know how to react. We were talking about, non-competition, maybe a white or blue belt. They're there, they got to go to work in the morning. They've got a family, a wife, right? They may not everybody's doing it for the same reason. You've got to be careful when you're bringing those moves into the school. So I think that's a really good rule of thumb. But at the same time, if you're a white and blue and you're in a competition school, or you're in a competition setting, and you're going to be doing hitting the next competition, and you want to go a little harder, there should be this. You should either be in that competition, a class specifically about competition, or be rolling with people that are going to do that competition who know that you're going to be rolling a little harder, and you may be trying some different things. So I think those are kind of good rules of thumb. I know not everybody has that same mindset. I'm proudly consider myself more of a hobbyist. I don't compete. I haven't competed for a long time. I love jiu-jitsu. It doesn't mean I don't love jiu-jitsu anymore. I just work, life, family, health, wasn't able to do it, and wasn't able to continue doing it, so I stopped. I love jiu-jitsu just as much as anybody else. I love a hard roll, but at the same time, right, nobody's looking to get hurt. I'm a black belt now, so I'm very conscious of how I deal with the new white belt or even somebody lower than me. I usually tell people, especially when I know they roll hard, I'm like, you have control. You have the accelerator in this, right? You're driving the car. You have control of the accelerator. I'm going to, go a little harder if you're going harder. If you want to roll and do it more of a flowy, I'm going to follow your lead. If you come at me hard, we're going to go hard. You've told me in your actions that we're about to roll hard. So that's the way that I look at it. But again, going back to, new moves, just be careful when you bring a new move in the class. If the person doesn't know that move, especially when you're talking about leg locks and heel hooks and things like that, not everybody has the same level of appreciation for those moves or understanding of those moves. And you just have to be careful. And, when you start breaking your toys, right? I've heard somebody say this, it's not an original thought, but, don't break your toys. Don't break your training partners, because now you have no toys. And then nobody's going to want to play with you either. So you got to be a little bit careful. And sometimes it's just good to roll with people of the same mindset, or at least have an understanding. I think any school, once you're there long enough, you know who the hard rolls are. You know the guys are going to roll softer. You know the guys that, just don't roll hard, but more flowy. With a younger guy or younger person in jiu-jitsu, if there's a 6-minute roll, I may try to tap them out quick, get a tap out of the way, and then I won't try to tap them till like the last minute of the round. I'm going to flow more. I'm going to catch and release. I'm going to move a little bit more and work. Because for me, it's like, what fun is it if I'm just tapping a white or blue belt? It doesn't really make sense for either one of us. It's like, okay, now we're going to start over. Like, okay, reset. So a little bit more catch and release and movement, and just have fun with it. I mean, that's the way I do it. Everyone's different. I know people that are just like kill, murder, right? But that's just my take on it. And I think that schools that if you've got people, this is not the same mindset for competition. Yeah, kill for competition. You got a competition coming, or you're in a competition class, different mindset. I'm in a class with, moms, dads of kids in the school, right? We have a lot of that. We have a lot of white and blue belts. There's always lots of white and blue belts on the mat. And as a business owner, I also understand from my coach, if I'm beating up the new white belt, he may not come back and you're losing that revenue, right? So I also do try to consider that. I am somebody that looks at both sides of this. And as a matter of fact, I help my coach with the advertising now, with marketing at the school. So I'm super conscious about that. I don't want to help him get somebody through the door and then also, scoot them out the door because I just beat the shit out of them that day. So I'm conscious of both sides of those things.
Right.
No.
Yeah, that's a good point that you made. I didn't think about that too, about like a white belt coming in with some new move they learned on Instagram or whatever. It's like there's sort of a certain point you have to hit where you're kind of aware of body mechanics enough to where where there's a risk of injury with a specific move, right? Yeah. And like, if the other person reacts a certain way, then they're going to get hurt.
I did what a can opener is?
Yeah.
Right? Both hands behind.
Yeah.
Right? I used to watch this channel, and it was a little bit more like catch wrestling. Yeah. And it was basically dirty jiu-jitsu moves is what, I mean, he like proudly, these are like dirty jiu-jitsu moves that you can use like on people you don't like maybe, or, but I didn't understand that it was illegal. And I wasn't doing it because I didn't like the guy. I'm in somebody's guard, and he was like super aggressive with his guard, like pulling me forward, so you're grabbing almost like a tie clinch, right? But your elbows are like on his chest, and I'm like you're able to manipulate their head, right? So I brought his head so far forward, he was out for over a month with like a neck injury, right? I hurt him that bad. Didn't understand it. Never did it again. I do it now sometimes with one hand, but I know not to bring the head all the way forward. Right. But I didn't know that that's completely an illegal move, right? But again, saw something on the internet, brought it in, hurt somebody, and kind of learned my lesson with that. So, kind of trial by fire, if you want to call it that. Like I did it myself, and I'm like, ooh, super conscious of hurting. I don't want anybody hurting me. I want to come tomorrow. I want to be able come in healthy and train in the morning. So So yeah, so I've experienced that myself, but that's a good example of something that I did. I thought I was being all cool. I was like addicted to YouTube when I first started.
Right.
So white, blue belt, man, I was like, I didn't watch TV. I watched YouTube,
Right.
you know, in my spare time. It was like, I'd be showering and like the phone would be outside the shower, like watching through the glass window. Like I had an iPad. It was with me everywhere. So I was really bad with that. So I was definitely an offender in that regard. So you just got to be, you know, again, don't break your toys. You know?
Yeah. I was going to say the thing, I think a big thing that I got from competing so much is that you see, like in the rules for competition, there's always a list of allowed submissions by belt level.
Okay.
So by division, right? No matter what the competition is, whether it's Grappling Industries, IBJJF, ADCC, rule set, whatever, you have a list of allowed submissions. And usually those are determined by the relative amount of danger of applying that move or submission based on your experience level. And I think it would probably do a lot of wonder for, I don't know if schools do this or not, but just like this initial like white belt safety brief, like here's some things like, don't do these things right now. Just if somebody's standing up in your closed guard, don't underhook both their legs because you might paralyze yourself if they fall forward, right?
Yeah.
Don't reap the knee because reaping I have my own thoughts on. I don't think it's that dangerous, but don't turn the knee in, don't be turning people's knees inside with such force that it will tear their meniscus or, like all of these basic things. Because I see that a lot. I'm like, why is this guy, like, by default, I think people shouldn't be doing these dangerous moves unless like that's why I say agree upon the rule set before rolling, because really when I say agree upon the rule set, what I'm trying to communicate is agree on what more dangerous things we're going to be trying to do to each other, so that, because like me competing for IBJJF, when I go to a competition class, we're all like implicitly following the IBJJF rule set. So I'm not preparing to defend a heel hook at the blue belt level. So when somebody tries to catch that on me, it's like, dude, we're not doing that in this role. Like I'm not watching out for that. Maybe I should
Sure.
like, there's something to be said for like having don't let people get to dangerous positions on you in the first place. Right. But, but I think it's more has to do with just like general safety. And then I think once you have that general safety and limits, then you can allow people more freedom in a way, I think, but just a theory.
So our next question comes from, it's David4, and it's got like 4 Ds at the end of David. David,
Nice.
DDDD4 _ He said, I think this is a great question because, you're doing so many competitions. So people that want to compete, I think this is a great one for them. What do you eat in between fights in competition when you have a lot of fights in the same day? And what if you don't really have time for a proper lunch? You could just be competing all day and not be able to eat. So start out with the first part of that. What are you normally eating, if anything, between fights?
Between matches, I don't really eat a whole lot. Because usually I'll usually eat before and then I eat a lot after.
Sure. Like bananas are always like everybody's go-to, I think, right? For the potassium, right? Like gives you that quick bit of energy.
Yeah.
Right?
So my list of foods that I do now when I'm shopping for my food for matches is bananas, watermelon, and coconut water.
Okay. I saw you say something in the video. As a matter of fact, I'll give you an opportunity. I think you're working with a supplement company. You were talking about a supplement. You want to talk about that real quick? Give them a shout out or tell us about them.
Yeah. So Momentous is a supplement company. I first heard about them on the Andrew Huberman podcast, Huberman Lab. I buy pretty much all my supplements from them.
So not a sponsor, but somebody you use.
Yeah, somebody I use, not a sponsor. I am affiliated with them. Yeah, yet. The other one is Santa Cruz Paleo. This might have been the one you saw because I've been using their electrolytes recently.
I think it was the electrolytes. Yes.
Yeah, it was probably that. So like that's the thing that I focus on for competition nutrition is carbs and electrolytes.
Okay.
And things that aren't going to make me shit myself on the mat.
Always a concern.
Yeah, that's like my worst fear is just like imagine just like Yeah, because they'll have to shut down the whole competition, right? You can't have people shitting on the mat.
No, don't shit in the pool and don't shit on the mat.
Don't shit on the competition mats. But yeah, bananas, watermelon, and coconut water. Actually, a guy just messaged me. He said he's doing his first IBJJF after a few years off. He asked me the same question. He was like, "What do you eat?" But usually between matches, you don't have a whole lot of time, depending on the event. Like in IBJJF, a lot of the times because if people are there already showing up, you might only have like 5-6 minutes between matches.
Yeah.
So like that's enough time to like get some coconut water. Like you want the thing that's most efficient to fuel you before the next match. So that's like quick sugar and electrolytes. And I might pop a couple watermelon or something. But
are you making weight? Are you making weight, or kind of are you competing at a walking around weight?
Most of the time I have to cut weight, make weight. There's a few times when I've gone up a weight class, but I don't like doing that. Just because the jump in weight class is like huge from lightweight to middleweight for me because I'm a very lightweight. But yeah, so there's that cutting component. Not really cutting, but just like making sure I'm making weight. There are competitions that I've cut heavily for, but most of the time I'm just making weight rather than like cutting. So I'm just being careful with what I'm eating. But yeah, so you don't really have time for a big breakfast. But actually, what works for me, I don't think a big breakfast works for me. Like I would just be puking and like needing to go to the bathroom and stuff. Like you just need stuff that's going to fuel you for those like short bursts of energy. I guess is that the first part of the question is just the list.
Yeah, you kind of answered both, and then you said you don't really eat much for the rest of the day, right? You said you don't, right? My own question. What is your favorite thing about competing? This life that you've created for yourself. What's your favorite thing about it?
Highlight reels.
Like highlight reel finishes or just the social media content? What do you mean?
It's good, sort of a joke, but like just like the best. So like how excited you get in the gym, like internally, you don't want to be trying to show off or anything, but you know how excited you get in the gym when you hit a new move that you've been working on.
Okay,
it's like that ultimate dopamine hit. It's like not that you need to go be like bragging about it or anything, but inside when you do something like in the gym when you're training, you're like, yes, like I did it. Because like that's the ultimate puzzles we're trying to solve, right? It's like how do I actually implement these things on a resisting opponent? There's that moment. There's two things. So there's those things in competition where it's like somehow I've managed to like hit this move that I've been working on in training, but in competition where it's like can be so much more difficult to do that. Like I think that's probably the most satisfying thing.
Sure.
And then there's always this moment walking out of the bullpen and stepping up to the mat and the ref does this thing to call you guys out like to the mat. Yep. And it's like shit just got real. And then that moment it's like, oh man, there's just something about it. Like after doing this so many times, like when the ref does that and you walk out of the mat, it's like, all right, it's go time. Like,
do you look back at that moment? I know for some people, again, I hate to like speak from my own experience because I didn't compete as much, but I was athletic when I was younger and I wrestled a little bit in junior high school. So I know that feeling. You're nervous up until that point, or you feel the nerves, but once you get on the mat, it's like everything goes away. Do you have that experience, or what is your experience once you walk out on the mat? What are you feeling? What are you thinking?
Yeah, that I don't know if you've seen this sort of, I don't know if we call it a meme, but it's sort of a meme on Instagram where people ask like why you do jiu-jitsu, but there's like this soundtrack playing of all these noises, and then it'll show somebody like stepping on a mat, and then like the audio mutes.
Yeah.
It can definitely be like that. Because you just can't like focus on anything else in the world. You get on the mat, and then it's like everything else just like by necessity just sort of silences.
You're dialed into the job in front of you.
Yeah, but not even like intentionally. And I feel like almost like being at my calmest. Yeah, it's exactly like actually just like what you described. There's the nerves and the adrenaline and everything, and then there's like these butterflies when the ref calls you onto the mat, and then slap bump, and it's like everything goes.
Yeah.
And then it's just you and your opponent. I don't know. You can't even really hear anything anymore, except like if I know I have a coach there, and I know what their voice sounds like, I can just hear that.
Isn't that weird how you could do that, right? Because it could be really loud and a lot of people are yelling, but you can absolutely, like, what kind of programming is it that you can just focus on that one voice?
Yeah, it's like a dream almost, like in this dream state where you just hear like their voice echoing in the background. It's like, Josh, pull your knee in, and then it's like these like just kind of in the back of the brain, like a dream state. Yeah, it's such a terrifying and like amazing feeling. Yeah.
All right, listen, we're going to run out of time soon, so we're not going to do any more listener questions, but we do a little something at the end of every episode. We call it the drill down. Now, our sound effects guy, Bo, is in here, who usually yells the drill down at this point. Christian, you want to give it a shot?
The drill down.
There you go. So these are the most common questions that we get. So it's kind of like every time we put out a questions post, we get almost these. So we just put them at the end of the episode and ask everybody because these are the ones that most people are interested in. So we're just going to go down these quickly. You can feel free to elaborate, but we're going to run through these a little bit more quickly than the regular questions. So we're going to start off with preference: gi or no gi?
Gi.
It's tough to say that.
It was tough.
Why? I want to know why.
Because I only know how to gator roll in the gi.
I like it. For me, as a bigger, older guy, like I like the control. I love both. I've always trained mostly gi, but I do like again, post heart attack. This was big for me, being able to slow people down and control them so that I can control my breathing and my heart rate. So that was for me. So like I still like am there. I don't have any problems with the breathing and the heart anymore. Like that. I'm super healthy now. But there's still like that control aspect. I love my gi days and I love the speed and like the movement, which is just like it's like almost like the same sport but different, But okay. Yeah. You mentioned this before, but we'll still ask: takedown or pull guard?
Right now, takedown. I also just started judo, so.
Tell me about that. Somebody did ask that question, and I apologize for that person not asking it earlier. But did you just start training in judo, and why? For obvious reasons, but let's tell everybody why.
Yeah, because last year I was just pulling guard and doing ankle locks all the time, and then and a lot of matches I lost sort of as a result of takedown exchanges not going my way, and I was like, man, I want to get better. I can't do any stand up. I mean, I can, but it's just terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And I had a friend, Eitan Gelber, black belt in judo, who trains at CJ Judo in San Jose, introduced me to the school. And I got hooked. I was like, for the gi, like I think judo is the way for the gi. If I was looking at no gi, I think I would probably try to find a wrestling gym, but I'm mostly trying to look at judo for takedowns in the gi.
Okay.
Yeah.
Music during rolling, what's your preference? Yes or no?
Yes.
Now,
it's meditative.
You don't own a gym, but if you had control, what's your music preference? What are you putting on if you get to choose the music?
British rap.
British rap, really?
Yeah, I know it's strange.
No, I've got I couldn't. Tiny Tempa is somebody that like I had on my phone. I know that's a little bit older, but like I appreciate that and understand like some of that British rap is good stuff.
Yeah.
But
I've got this playlist on my Spotify called AFALG that I created when I first started competing. It stands for Ain't Fucking Around, Let's Go. Because I don't know why. I just like this is the name of the playlist. And I started adding songs to it, and then for some reason I just kept adding like these like just hard British rap songs would come up.
Yeah.
It's hard to say that British rap is hard given like
I'm thinking that in the back of my mind.
Right. They're like it's hard to explain. Like just there's something about a guy like talking about crumpets.
Yeah. Do you have like a favorite artist? Do you have somebody that you like?
Stormzy and Dave.
Okay.
Yeah, they got some. If you're looking for some competition music, they got some.
Okay,
it goes hard.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
So we asked about things that you thought that gyms were doing wrong, but let's ask this one with annoying things that coaches do.
not know your game when they're coaching you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, is that because you're traveling and maybe it's a different coach that's in your corner, or elaborate on that a little bit if you can?
Yeah. I think there should be like a pre-brief. So I've just seen it happen with like coaches coaching other people, and then I've had just a few isolated experiences with like coaches coaching me. It's like, because I'm sure everybody's experienced this, even if you're just at the gym rolling. It's like you're trying to do something and somebody's telling you to do something else. It's like if they just knew the thing that you were trying to do, they could just coach you through doing that thing, right? It's like it just causes chaos and confusion if you're not on the same page of like, here's my strategy, here's my plan, here's the things that I can do well, here's the things I suck at. Like if I can't bolo, this example would probably never happen, but if I can't bolo, don't tell me to bolo in the middle of a competition match, right?
Sure.
Like there's a disconnect. I think that's just part of good coaching, but
I understand that.
Yeah.
What would you be doing now? I know you've got a regular job, but what would you be doing if you hadn't found martial arts? Was there anything else that you were passionate about outside of your day job?
Yeah. Well, right now I really enjoy, I like singing and playing instruments. Take singing lessons every week.
Really?
Yeah, I've been doing that for a few years.
Okay.
So maybe probably the biggest thing would be, I would still be making videos. So like all of these Instagram reels and stuff that I make, I spend a lot of time on those.
Yeah.
Like probably too much time. But really I sort of see that as a separate discipline from jiu-jitsu. It's like I just really like making videos, and if I wasn't doing jiu-jitsu, I would probably be making videos of something. Yeah.
What you mentioned singing? What genre of music do you have a preference?
Oh, all the sad boy songs and country.
Country, okay. All right.
Yeah, I like Luke Combs. That's my favorite country artist. Yeah.
All right. Now, you mentioned cutting videos, and you've obviously got your channels. Are you watching a lot of stuff too? Are you a consumer of jiu-jitsu instructionals, videos, Instagrams?
Yeah, I'm watching stuff all the time. It's hard because like what I do is I start watching so many different videos, but it's so many different people making the videos that I feel like I should start keeping track of who I'm watching. But there's a few like instructionals. Definitely, I'm always watching like specifically like Danaher and Gordon instructionals, and then I'm trying to get more into the AOJ stuff for like gi passing and everything. But and then on YouTube, I'm just watching all kinds of different like I watch competition matches like all the time, very frequently.
Okay.
And then I try to watch breakdowns of competition matches. There's some of these channels too that like start talking about the new metas in jiu-jitsu and technique and everything, like Less Impressed, More Involved, BJJ, if you know about that one. There's a bunch of these different sort of breakdown channels, but trying to think who else I can give your listeners here, but I wish I knew more names. But
okay. No worries.
Yeah.
Competitors, who's your favorite competitor to watch?
My favorite competitor to watch is I would say Tynan Dalpra.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you an MMA fan as well? Is it just jiu-jitsu? I went to a UFC fight, and the person that I went with, she's like, "Don't your friends?" I'm like, most of my jiu-jitsu friends don't follow anything to do with UFC or MMA. That's where my love started. It was watching UFC and MMA, and then I got into jiu-jitsu. So, are you somebody that likes that part of martial arts, or is it just all about jiu-jitsu and now judo?
It's just all about jiu-jitsu right now. I never followed the UFC. Like I've got some fighters I like. Like I really like Khabib. I really like. Well, he's not doing it anymore, but like there are certain fighters I like, but I was never like following UFC. Yeah, I don't know. I've noticed that about jiu-jitsu guys, though. You're right, huh?
Every time I'm like, "Hey, who's winning the fights?" They're like, "What fight?" I'm like, "Oh, Jesus."
Yeah, exactly.
I wish I had like this. I used to watch a lot of stuff with old roommates, and they didn't train, but we were all MMA fans. And then I went off and got into jiu-jitsu. So, ultimate goal. What's your ultimate goal in this world of jiu-jitsu? Where do you see yourself in 5, 10, 15 years?
To continue enjoying it.
Okay.
That's it. Yeah.
First answer like that ever.
Yeah, I don't hope for anything, because all of these other things that I could hope for, like being a world champion, any of this stuff, that's literally nothing that I can control. I can just control, like, I hope that I keep trying to get better and enjoying what I'm doing. That's it.
Okay. Now, you do see yourself? We talked about this a little bit before. You do. Let's not call it a goal, but you do see yourself this being the career.
Yeah.
In some way, shape, or form, your career is going to be based around whether it's competing or, doing the podcast or doing what have you. Right.
Yeah.
You'll be involved with jiu-jitsu for the rest of your life.
Yeah, for sure. I think what I want to do, we actually never ended up getting to this part of the answer on the question about like how people make careers out of this. But I think the last option of making careers in jiu-jitsu is like the content creation aspect of it. So that's sort of the actions I'm taking towards that. That is like just making the best videos I can that give value to people. And then like, I think if I keep doing that enough, I'm starting to see like some growth with that and everything, then maybe there'll be a point where I can just do that all the time. And I don't have to be a software engineer, just make videos and do jiu-jitsu.
And you are doing a podcast, right? Did you mention, or did I see it? All right. You started a podcast, right? Tell us about it.
So my friend Matt Guffey, he's the owner and of a strength and conditioning gym for grapplers called Victory Submission Strength. So he actually started that podcast. It's called Thanks for the Roll, and he asked me to be co-host on it.
Okay.
So it's Matt's brainchild there, and then I'm a co-host on there as well. And
okay.
Yeah, actually, I was reading your website, sort of your mission there of like a jiu-jitsu podcast for normal people.
Yeah.
And I really like that. And that's actually kind of what we were doing too. It's like sort of the thing that people want to hear about is like stuff they can relate to, right?
Yeah. I mean, you see, so much of the podcast is just getting to know the person on the other end, right. When that's coming in studio, or I'm not asking like technical questions about moves and that, like I want to get to know the person. It's like I want it to feel like we're at a bar having a beer, getting to know each other. Like that's the feel that I've always gone for. It's just more fun for me. I'm just like, so I want to know about the person, right? And is this somebody that I would want to have a roll with one day, or like invite them down? Like that's the feel that it wasn't intentional, to be honest. It was just where it went. And I just like that about this experience, rather than, trying to get into describing moves. Like you said, it's so hard. How do you describe jiu-jitsu moves when you're in this, in this form? But that's my favorite thing about this is just getting to know people and the personalities. And then, sometimes I take things, I'm like, that was really smart. What they, I didn't think of that. I didn't think about that, and try to take either pieces into my life or into my jiu-jitsu. So
that's what I noticed about doing our podcast too. Thanks for the Roll is like every time we just want to talk to like interesting people, and then every time we talk to them, like I learn, just pick out these little things that they've said, and I'm like, oh, this has now changed the way I think about something. I think that's
again, and I mean, I like my life, my job is about just like getting to know people, whether it's this or like all my business comes from networking. We do very little like advertising for the marketing company. It's belong to like networking groups. So I'm just always meeting interesting people. And when I started the podcast, it was just, I wanted to record conversations that I was having with my buddies. One was a black belt at the time. I was a blue, maybe just becoming a purple, and another blue belt. We used to go out, like we'd go out for beers and pizza after like a Saturday roll, or maybe like, go train and then like go take showers and go meet up for a beer. And those were some of the most interesting conversations, especially from the black belt telling me about the things that, like learning about the things that we were going to encounter soon, right? Like just stories and the gossip. And I'm like, I'd get in the car and I'd be like, man, I wish we would have recorded that. That's like I like listened to Rogan a little bit. I was never a podcast fan, but I'm like, man, that was such a good conversation. I wish that like white belts need to hear this stuff about just the craziness, the good stuff, the bad stuff about jiu-jitsu. And then it just evolved. And actually, like my wife at the time I mentioned it. I'm like, she's going to shoot this down. I'm like, what? what am I thinking? I'm like, I had this idea to do a podcast. She's like, oh, there's somebody that records a podcast in my office. Yeah, you could do it there. And I was just like, holy shit, she's buying into this. And I was like, I hit the ground running. I had her support and I just ran with it. So that's how it started for us. But all right, I do have one last question for you.
Okay.
Do you or do you not wash your jiu-jitsu belt?
Of course I wash it. Come on.
Of course you do, right?
Guys,
Duh.
guys, your belt is not immune from staph. What?
Oh, so
Right.
I'm gonna admit, I've washed my belt white to brown. I've always had multiple belts, so like I was no like, oh, my coach gave me this belt. They're so tied to it. I've had my black belt since December. I have not washed my black belt, but I do spray it with either Lysol or we had a sponsor. Is it on here? Nutrizone Clean. There's a little logo down here. They used to sponsor the show. I still work with them. Nutrizone Clean. I have tons of the spray still, so I'll spray it with the Nutrizone or I spray it. Now it's just like I want this belt to last the longest possible, and I know that if I wash it, it's going to wear it faster and right. Yeah. So at least right now, that's what I'm doing, but I haven't washed it yet.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. At first, I didn't wash my belt because I just have like the stripes. They're just like tape. They're just finger tape.
Yeah.
So like if I would wash it, they would just fall off. I'd be like, this is annoying. But
I always just put more tape on myself.
Yeah, that's what I do now.
I know somebody that irons their like if you iron the tape. No, but like put the tape on it and iron it, I guess just melts it and it stays on longer, I guess. I don't know.
I've heard that too now that you mention it. Yeah.
I also just put a lot of tape, just a ton of tape on the white, and then I know it's going to peel off and then I just rip it and then rip it until it and then I got to put it on again, but put a lot. But I never did the iron thing, but smart. I guess.
Well, this is one of the many reasons you're a black belt is because you have this knowledge that
yes, this is the important stuff, everybody. This is the stuff that you really need to know. Yes. Anybody could do a heel hook, right?
Right.
Thank you to Feito IT and AV, specializing in commercial and residential automation, security cameras, CCTV, POS, and more. Check them out at feitoitav.com or call 305-428-2515 and let them know the dummy sent you. Special thank you to the crew over at Flow and Roll for all their support. Flow and Roll is renowned for their incredible no-gi rash guards, shorts, and leggings. Flow and Roll has quickly become the premier custom apparel provider for academies big and small throughout the United States. Reach out today to discuss your custom order and ask about their incredible pre-order program. You can send an email to flowandroll@gmail.com or visit their Instagram at flow_n_roll and shoot them a direct message. And yes, they can create an awesome custom gi for your academy as well. Visit flowandroll.com to check out their awesome designs, and while you're there, pick up a Jiu-Jitsu Dummy signature tee exclusively at flowandroll.com. And remember, you'll get 20% off your purchase of t-shirts, rash guards, or gis with code JJD.
All right, listen, Josh, thank you so much for doing this. I just want to give you a last minute. I'm not sure do you have any sponsors that you're working with? You want to give any shout outs to anybody? I'll give you a minute to do that. This is your time.
Yeah, Odyssey Jiu-Jitsu, my team. I actually recently left my previous gym and I've joined Odyssey Jiu-Jitsu. Anybody on the East Coast and in the Atlanta area, that's where Odyssey Jiu-Jitsu is. I think they're probably a hidden gem right now. They're pretty new, just 3 years old.
Okay.
But if anybody's traveling and wants to train there, Greg Sirico is one of the head coaches there, Marcelo Black Belt. Really good team they're building over there. So,
okay.
So I actually first ran into Odyssey last year during all my travels, and one of the best gyms I've trained at. So that's why I ended up joining. But yeah, just big shout out if anybody. I think they're really starting to do something. Who else was I going to say? I think I'll stick with that for now. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Again, look, don't hang up. I want to take we're going to do a picture by the screen when we're done. But thank you to everybody that's watching and listening. Check us out at Jiu-Jitsu Dummies on IG. You can check out my personal Uncle Milty BJJ on Instagram. Thank you for watching and listening, everybody. Peace, love, Jiu-Jitsu. Us.